I am here today at the Brockton Public Library with a local author who is going to be a familiar face to you as soon as the camera reveals her. I'm here today with Lise Yunits. Hi, Lise.
Mark.
Local author, you added that to your repertoire. You already were a singer. You're already the wife of the mayor, or I would maybe call you deputy mayor. How does it
No,
feel
not-
to have
not-
written a book?
It feels like a huge accomplishment. Actually, it does. Because it took me 14 years. I'm a slow writer. But of course, writing is rewriting
Mm-hmm.
and rewriting and rewriting and deciding what to leave in, what to put out, take out. So,
Now, I know in talking to you, it had to have been a good 5 years ago when we did a final interview for one of our shows, Democratically Speaking. Richard Bath hosted. We were in your house. Jack and yourself and Scott Holmes and Richard Bath were there with me. And you told me you were keeping a journal, and you showed me the journal. And the journal must be like this big, okay? And
19 notebooks.
Really?
Stand this deep, yeah.
okay, and I tempt us a little bit. Tell us, what came out of the journal that made it into the book. I mean, I lived through the whole history of Jack being the mayor, the 10 years in office, the longest serving mayor. What made the book?
I think what made the book maybe is that the times that it happened. Not only, of course, I believe Jack was the greatest mayor ever, but not only was he the mayor, and we were raising 4 kids, and experiencing the murders in the city and the snow catastrophes, etc. But it was a very interesting time in America. Y2K happened, 9/11 happened, the Red Sox won the World Series, that happened, the Patriots won the Super Bowl 3 times. That all happened when Jack was the mayor. And on top of that, it didn't stop snowing. We had tornadoes, we had microbursts. He was able to build the Campanelli Stadium. He renovated this beautiful building. Not he, with a hammer, but you know what I mean.
I do.
Under his leadership, Mark, you were there for the whole thing.
Absolutely.
And I pieced it together with that in mind, but trying to make the human element as well, and what goes on in the home of a busy mayor, or probably any mayor. So I tried to relate so that people could relate to many different aspects of the book.
No, he was a busy mayor. I think you once said to me at one point that I was at all the events that he was at, but you guys had quite the schedule. You were every place in Brockton, both of you, not just he, because a lot of times, you're a team, you're a partnership, so you're both together. Tell us, impact on the family. How did that impact the family? Your kids were young when you started.
They were young. Mary was 5, Connor was 14, kind of in there. So I guess you would say family dinners were a rarity, and I started to make it a point to have them as often as possible, which was maybe once or twice a month.
Okay.
Because it was insane. It was kind of insane. Jack was such a proactive mayor, as you know, that he'd be running all day. I wouldn't even know where he was. He'd be here, he'd be there, he'd be here, and then he'd come home. We'd whip me up, and then out we'd go, and we'd go 4 different places at once, and leave the kids a lot to fend on them for themselves with their chicken fingers and
There you go.
hot,
Well,
hot dogs.
I know everybody had a schedule because I know Lillian kept the schedule in the mayor's office.
She was the best.
You had a schedule.
Yeah.
He had a schedule, and it was kind of on the cusp of technology because I don't think it was all
That's right.
BlackBerry. I think it
No,
was
there were no
pretty much
Blackberries then.
handwritten schedule.
Cell phones came to be when kind of in that era.
Yeah,
maybe just
exactly.
in the beginning. Or no, I take that back. The year we moved into our house, which was 1991. We didn't have cell phones. I think Jack had one in his car, one of those
Oh, yeah.
ones
The bag
attached in
phone?
the
Yeah. Or the attached
attached to
one.
the car.
Okay.
But the internet was not
I know.
a thing when he first became mayor. That's how, and that's almost like, how could we ever live without the internet?
Exactly.
That's how new that all was. I remember there is a mention of that in the book, that going down to Washington our first year, which was 1996, and it was like the buzz in the room, the internet. What's the internet? What's that? Nobody seemed to know what that was. And it was all starting to evolve. That's how
A
new.
lot of history being made. I remember 9/11 pretty vividly because I'll tell you my story about 9/11. The TV wasn't working in the mayor's office, and I became a TV
Imagine.
repairman for the day. So there was a cable loose or something
Oh.
like that, and I went down there, and it was election day. on
Yes,
top
it
of
was.
everything else.
It
And
was.
Jack was
Stevie Lynch
for
was-
Stevie Lynch,
was
okay?
running, yeah.
And I was down there, and
Jack was not running on that ballot, but
I know he wasn't. He had thought about it, if I remember right.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
a whole talk about that, and
oh yeah, that was
but-
brief talk.
but it was brief.
Yeah.
I remember that real vividly, and he was talking about how important it was for the election day to go forward because of what happened over
Yes.
there. And I remember the snowstorms. I remember the microburst. We were still on the air, but we weren't sure whether we were going to be on the air. And all the different events. And then, you know how they talk about president's age, and you saw the pictures of George Bush when he started and when George Bush finished. Well, Jack, if you look at the pictures in the book,
Yes.
Jack had a full head of dark hair. Okay,
Yes.
now I shouldn't be talking hair, but what the heck? Jack had a full head of dark hair, and he was thinner because he had walked. I mean, he walked
Oh, I
the
know.
city
He
when
walked
he
6,000
ran
houses,
for
yeah.
office, and then you go to all those events and functions and stuff like that, and do what I
It's
do. Have a
amazing.
few.
My hair just stayed blonde the whole time.
Oh,
It's
there
just
you go.
amazing. I don't know. I just stopped aging.
Now, let me ask you, Connor ended up sort of, he was looking to follow in his footsteps when he ran for state rep. Did any of the kids really hate it? Did Mary hate the whole fact that you guys were so busy and everything like that? Or did she kind of
yeah.
adapt to it? Or
Mary adapted easily, I think, because she was just 5 when it kind of started. She got grief at school, when snow days and if it didn't get canceled or things like that. I think, honestly, I feel that my daughter Casey had the hardest time because she was a young teenage girl. And she wanted to have a private life, and it was very public, and I think that made her self-conscious more often than not. So I think that it was hardest on Casey, but then again, she went on to join the Peace Corps
right.
and help others similar
So community
to the way
service.
Jack
So community
does.
service. It kind of
Exactly,
runs
community
in the
service.
blood. And you were also working during all this happened. Jack had a law practice with John
Right.
McCluskey and John Buckley at the time. He left to be mayor, and you stayed there, right?
That's right.
So you had to
So I
work,
just
you had to
did
deal
it,
with the
yeah.
kids, then you had
I
to
was
do
always working part-time, not full-time.
right.
And I, of course, thanks to John McCluskey, was able to make a lot of my own hours and take the time off that I needed to go with Jack to conferences or to head out to dinner meetings and things like that. It was a good situation. I really owe a lot to John McCluskey.
Now, what about favorite times when Jack was mayor? I don't know if I should start with the good or
I
do any
know.
bad. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure
Well, it's
you're.
all in the book. The troubles that we went through, we ourselves had our car stolen in Brockton, and torched, and things like that happened, and the phone calls that woke us in the middle of the night. That's all part of it. I think some of the best times were things, to me, like the red, white, and black balls that we had, which were so much fun. The opening of Campanelli Stadium. Remember that party
Yes.
that night? That
Oh, yeah.
opening was so wonderful.
And it was raining, but everybody stayed.
Everybody stayed, and then Bill Murray got out there and led the